Okay, a little bit late, but so to add them in the collection editor, you want to go to additional tab, and then you scroll all the way down to the bottom and it'll say services, and you can see there if you have active portfolios, and then you can go to portfolio list, and here it brings you into the exact same service editor where you can then add the portfolios, and you can see the tabs up here have changed because we've moved into the service editor. So Amanda will definitely forgive me. And Lake Washington is dealing with Greg leaving, so I won't mess up their stuff. So if you're going to add all portfolios from community, it will ask you to confirm because they're like, that's a lot of things. And then with a collection this size, it will take a while. Now, this is still not available. So they're still not going to like show up. But we are adding those portfolios in so that then we can actually see them. Who did Highline had everything actually active? Oh, for some reason it doesn't. Let's see if sometimes it likes my saved password, sometimes it doesn't. Okay. Okay, so if we look at it at Highline, okay, here we go. We've got the blue people instead of gray people because the service is available. We've got a portfolio list button to the left of the edit collection, which we don't have here because there were no portfolios loaded. So then let's look at their configurations. So under additional, correctly not proxy enabled, and then it's showing the number of portfolios, which you would expect when that's activated. It is active for CDI search, which makes sense because it has portfolios. And it is set to no. So it is indicating that the subscription is to all titles in the collection, which for a fully open access collection is will not. Kirsty, you might have to help me out. Sometimes this is a really good thing because then you get the updates on things and you get consistent access, but sometimes you don't want to do that
Yeah,
because why?
I think from what I remember from eLuna and the Primo training was that's pretty straightforward when you're dealing with ebooks. We subscribe to only some titles in the collection, yes or no, like that works really well for ebooks. If you've got anything that involves e-journals, you almost always want to pick yes. And that has to do with the fact that you might not have access to every single issue for the entire time that the journal was published.
But the collection has that journal's information, and then CDI is going to act like outside of embargo and pull in those citations.
Right, exactly. Yeah, CDI is looking at like the history of the thing over its entire existence. But the community zone collections may not have everything in the publication history. Did that make sense, kind of?
It makes sense to me, but I lived in that for a while and I knew there was a reason. Yeah, and I think the important thing to remember, if you don't totally understand that explanation, is that this is about Alma using CDI to pull in like the record content.
Yes.
So if you don't want them to pull in a ton of extra record content, because, maybe you're activating some of the portfolios, but not all of them, or you just find that you've got a bunch of duplicates for some reason, which I think we all can relate to, then selecting yes can be a good option. And it's easy enough to switch it back to no if you're like, dang it, we're just not getting what we need out of this activation. Oops, nope. Rogue cursor action. So yeah, this could go either way depending on how your Primo is responding to things.
I think one thing I heard about that choice is that if you say no, the CDI would not, system would not check individual titles against the index, but it would signal, okay, so everything in that collection is all good. So something like that. So it does not look at individual portfolio level information. So
it just does title upper level stuff.
Yeah, that's another really good put it
no, it's more like CDI has its own information about what titles are in a collection versus what's activated in Alma. They might not necessarily match exactly.
Interesting. I mean, not unexpected.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of a CDI tells you that something exists. Like the CDI database lets you know that something exists, but the CDI settings in Alma, you use those to control, even if this exists, do I want my users to know that it does if they don't have access to it?
Well, and CDI, like we were just looking at that one, Kirsty, the logic of Japanese politics.
Oh yeah.
CDI, so like there's this record, it's in the EBSCO ebooks collection, and if you look in this, like, what was it, the 856, Kirsty realized like information was coming from 5 different CDI collections. And even though Lower Columbia and Big Bend only have the EBSCO electronic collection, the something about the duplicate, there's too many ISBNs or whatever, and it's not properly deduping. But basically, because it's pulling that title's information from all of CDI, it's pulling lots of extra ISBNs, which is causing the duplicate. And so if you have we subscribe to all titles set whichever it's such a weird reverse negative. I hate
It
that
is.
thing.
It is.
It's gonna go out and find those 6 different 1 record to 5 sources connections in your Primo. And so it could provide your users with incorrect availability information. Right? Is that
Go back to that CDI tab. Oh, it's in the at the collection level, not the service level.
Oh, because that's what I'm at in both of these. There we go.
I think on the we subscribe to only some titles in this collection. I think the general rule of thumb would be if it's some sort of open access thing and you want people to know that everything in this open access collection exists,
Go ahead and say
no.
no.
If it's anything that you pay for, say yes. If it's an open access collection and you're only turning on some of the titles for your own individual library,
Say yes.
say yes.
Yeah. And I think
One more time. Repeat that one more time.
Okay. If you have an open access collection and you've turned on every single title that exists for that open access collection,
all the portfolios are loaded.
Yeah, all the portfolios. We subscribe to only some titles in this collection equals no. If you have any kind of collection that you pay for, we subscribe to only some titles in this collection equals yes.
Even though that seems counterintuitive.
I think it's probably safer. If you have an open access collection and you're only turning on some of the titles within it, we subscribe to only some titles in this collection equals yes.
And that should help users find as much open access content as possible and also limit access issues where a record indicates that it's available through a certain collection, but as it turns out, like, you know, you go to the JSTOR collection, you're like, nope, they only have to 2012. This is a 2016 article. It's probably because of this. Because it's pulling like, yep, that article exists, and this, you know, this service, this collection has access to it. And it's not really as smart as we think it is. So like Highline has the portfolios available. The other thing that you can see here is that they have activate new portfolios associated with service automatically. And so that is one that I think I always kind of got switched in my head when I was thinking of the we subscribe to only versus activate new portfolios. It is really, again, personal opinion, I think it's really important to have this yes set for pretty much anything that you like that you subscribe to, that you have like definitely chosen, I want this entire collection like OA, because if you say no, it doesn't take very long for the collection to be out of date, and for new portfolios to not be in Primo. But if you're only activating selected portfolios in a collection, you would definitely want to set this to no, because you're making that intentional choice on what you're activating. But yeah, because trying to upload MARC records. Okay, we've got some good notes in chat. If you want to copy from that. And then, yeah, so here's another cleanup one that I was going to talk about. So like there's two sides to this, and I wanted to bring up the other one too. So if an electronic collection has no portfolio records, even though it's from the community zone, you can be like, oh, maybe I don't need that collection, and you can delete the services on that collection. You could create a new e-activation task, or I think you can just do it the way that we just did it. Vice
I think that's
versa.
easier.
Yeah. E-activation tasks are great if you are a massive university with like multiple workflows, and e-activation task management is a thing. So the flip side, and one of the CDI cleanup tasks that I don't think I ever did after Whitworth migrated, but maybe Paul did, is looking for standalone portfolios, because that could be a source of weirdness. So I looked this up, and it's a knowledge base article, and it's post-migration cleanup of e-resources. And so if there were like tests, like random acquisition records that no longer have an electronic collection attached to them, there were some other case. So this one I think is a common one, that the portfolios that were previously activated in order to enhance bib records. So like Amy was talking about this, might have been as much as a month ago, but like, oh, do we not need to have all of these collections that we don't actually subscribe to in our institution zone, so that the collections that we do have that don't have great bib records can like pull from those for that to get good quality. With CDI, you don't need all of those. So this one is talking about adding them as a local, but where's the other one? No. I think, yeah, so like they got duplicated, and you've got one that's coming from your migration, and then another that's coming from the CZ linked portfolio. And so, or that they had multiple, they were duplicated when it migrated because of 856 fields. So both cleanup options start with finding electronic portfolios with standalone equals yes. And you can do that in analytics. And then you can create a set from analytics. So
You could do it in the search too. I think I just did it in.
is that one of the advanced search options?
Uh-huh.
So search in, that would be electronic portfolio, and what was it? Already forgot the words.
Is standalone.
Standalone. Okay, so but if you have to create a giant set, I think it's easier to do in
Mm.
analytics because you can export it, whereas exporting from here doesn't always work the way I expect it to, and I get mad. Um, so
That's
yeah,
a
so we've
lot.
got all of these standalone records, which, and since this isn't my collection, I don't know what's going on. But you can see they were created in 2017, which would have been migration. And we can go in and see where this is going to. So Net Library, is that EBSCO?
Oh, okay. So if you see Net Library and anything, probably what's going on is back in the early 2000s when ebooks were just becoming a thing for academic libraries, a whole bunch of what was it? Okay. So Net Library was the name of the company. They sold this huge package of ebooks to academic libraries in the state of Washington. The whole deal was brokered by the state library.
That's the thing that Melinda was talking about.
Yeah. So the whole deal
God.
was brokered by the state library. And part of the project involved, we got OCLC records for some of the titles, but not all of the titles. And most of the academic libraries in the state bought into this Net Library package deal. Net Library went under a few years later, and I think OCLC bought them, and then OCLC ditched them and sold them to EBSCO or ProQuest. But in any case, the
Yeah,
Net
just
Library,
linked to EBSCO.
yeah,
Well, and what's
they've
interesting,
changed hands a few times.
so I'm going to test something here. We're just going down a completely different rabbit hole
Mhm.
now. But so this is that Net Library thing, and it is where did ah,
Yeah.
I do want to edit portfolio
Yeah.
because I need it to be proxy enabled, and it's not currently.
Ah.
And I'm going to save this
Honestly, what I would,
to see if we still have access. And
and
now
you
I'm going to
should,
test
because
access.
the whole thing with that package deal was that it was permanent access. Like there was no expiration date on the license. The libraries were supposed to have permanent archival access to everything in that package.
Okay, so fun extra side project. I think now I have a way that what you could do, and this has nothing to do with what we were talking about earlier, but what Melinda was talking about, like, how do we know which of those books are included? Because it's a static URL that includes Net Library, you could run either an advanced search or an analytics report to get that set and then attach them to a local collection and proxy enable that collection service.
Yes, that's the easiest thing to do with those
And
things.
then you could name that service, like you could name that electronic collection and be able to actually keep track of it and know what it was and why it was hanging out. So that's a long-standing mystery kind of solved that I'm definitely going to play with now.
And
But
I'll also mention some of those net library titles, they're 20 years old at this point.
you
Yeah.
might not want them.
Community college libraries might not want them anymore.
Yeah. Well, but if you have them in a collection, then you can do an analysis on that collection of publication date and things like that, and make it becomes much easier to do collection management on it. Yeah, don't think we probably,
And I'm guessing if you tweaked that advanced search, so you had is standalone equals yes, and in the portfolio record, there's got to be something there for the link or the URL contains net library.
let's see if we can make advanced search.
netlibrary.com. I don't know. Yeah, net library is probably fine. Those may be most of the standalone portfolios.
And it looks like they are at Big Bend.
At least for Big Bend, yeah.
So let's see.
Abby, are you seeing anything on yours, or Linda? Like if you do that?
Yeah, I want to go to Lower Columbia because I know.
I think when I first started, so I'm going on like a year and a half now. When I first started, I found a lot of those standalone portfolios that were net library. And I was like, oh, these are like all like just hanging around out there and they're really old. And so I just got rid of them. I could have packaged them up and I could have evaluated them, but I was just like, delete.
Well, I think I heard though that like they do contain some fiction titles. Do we think? Did I hear that? Like I think somebody said something about like they contained all the Harry Potters.
No. They
definitely didn't. Let's see what.
Some people may have bought net library ebooks outside of that package.
That could have.
But I remember from when that package was negotiated by the state library that the whole big thing was it was all university press stuff specifically intended for academic libraries.
Okay. Well, Lower Columbia, you do not have any of those, but let's see if you have any standalone.
I think you have to choose the portfolio, not collection.
Oh, thank you. It was.
Good catch, Naoko.
Well, and then I went down here to it and it had the right option. So I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. Electronic portfolio is. Oh, not bad. 318. So we've got Gale Virtual Reference Library. Interrupting Chicken and the Elephant of Surprise. It's a sound. Oh, old RB Digital. Not proxy enabled, so there's no way anyone can find it. But let's see if it comes up in.
Or can get to it.
Let's see if it even shows up in Primo.
But yeah, but I think so. In addition to that net library.
What's that, Interrupting Chicken? I don't know.
In addition to that net library university press ebook collection, there was also some kind of audiobook thing that I think some of the community colleges bought that got sold to RB
Digital.
which I think has since been sold on to Libby/Overdrive.
Okay, so we've got Interrupting Chicken and the Elephant of Surprise. And if I do this, yep. So let's see if I edit this and I do proxy enable, because they may have just killed it. Like there may not even be. Okay, Linda, search it. See if it was. Does RB Digital exist? Do their links exist? Nope. Cool story, cool story. Hold on.
Linda
I want
should have more information on that.
Okay,
I
I'm
have
gonna
no
do.
information. I think it's before my time, but
Yeah.
I don't think we have a subscription or anything. So, yeah, and I'm getting the oops, it looks like you've attempted to view a page you don't have access to.
I
So,
think those audiobooks, if it's the thing that Melinda was talking about, those were also you bought permanent access forever and ever and ever.
So, and it looks like
The
that
the
is
owner
where
of the
your,
content has changed.
yeah, that is
Oh.
what your standalones are.
Huh.
Or is that RB Digital collection? So let's do a little, okay. RB
And Melinda
Digital
maybe knows who has that now.
Overdrive.
Oh.
So you,
Oh.
But Overdrive has been
well, Overdrive bought Canopy, and they just changed their apps so that Libby is one of their apps.
We canceled our Overdrive like a year ago. So, there we go. That's my bad.
Yeah, so I wonder if, now I'm curious, I should do a search in Spokane. So I guess the moral of the story is if you do a search for standalone portfolios, you might just find content that you do have access to that is not correctly proxied. You might find, yeah, you might find content that you should have access to, but you don't. Or you might just find weird duplicate hanger-oners from migration, which was what my intention was in showing you that little search. Oh, no, not users. I don't want users. I want portfolios. Portfolio. Why did it not? Electronic portfolio is standalone equals. Yes. Yeah. Whoo, okay. So okay, so so she's got them as, I bet you if I, nope, that's an order. Okay, hold on. We will. Okay, so that she may have fixed that, but maybe what's the material? Yeah, material type, instead of being book.
Sound recording?
Yeah. Aha. So anything. Wish I could. I can't filter this based on or attached order, can I? Can I add another search? Here, just for funsies. Okay, so not a lot of these are not proxy enabled, but if I test access, I probably won't be able to get. Yeah. So anyway, so there's all kinds of kind of batch investigations that you can do by searching for the electronic portfolios that are standalone, vice versa, by looking at electronic collections that have no portfolios. Because, so like if we do electronic collection, thank you, nope, and say like, and it's available, and then we do electronic collection, and where is it?
Maybe try in the portfolios section.
Well, so I did it, the way I did it was electronic collection type, and you can do like, so you can do like, okay, our aggregator packages, those should
okay.
all have portfolios. So then if you search, so these are active collections, they should all have some portfolio list. And if they don't,
There's a problem.
then yeah, then they weren't like properly activated. So not sure, you know, like that one's probably a weird one. Vice versa. So the way I did it was because I was like, I wanted to see how many databases were yeah, and she doesn't have any. But I was looking at somebody's to see how many database type electronic collections were active at an institution, because those will not have portfolios. So anyway, but yeah, so that was not a particularly linear cleanup discussion, but I hope
one more note about the standalone portfolios. So back when we all migrated in 2016, 2017, there was this thing Ex Libris had everybody do where they said, give us a list of all of your bibliographic records where you want us to create portfolio records for you. And they didn't really explain how that was going to work and what it was going to do. If you gave Ex Libris any bibliographic record numbers as part of that, they called it a P2E project. or P2E spreadsheet,
Yep.
then Ex Libris created one portfolio record for every single URL that had existed in the bib record.
Yes.
So in some cases, like if you had, I
Yep.
don't know, like an e-journal and the record came from OCLC, like you might have ended up with 50 to 100 portfolios. So there might be some portfolio records that you just flat out want to delete because they really never should have been created in the first place.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to put this link into the chat if anyone is interested, because yeah, this was the article that I was looking at because that was the situation that I was thinking of when I was thinking of, you know, CDI cleanup, just as one to start. But you can see that even Ex Libris recognizes 6 like different post-migration situations where you could have ended up needing to do cleanup. And then we just talked about multiple others with, you know, long ago purchased perpetual access that may or may not exist anymore. However, now that I have an idea of what some of those titles are, especially in the audiobook collection, I think I'm going to reach out to Overdrive and see what I can't find out. Because if you paid for stuff, let's get it, especially since it's interrupting chicken. I really enjoy that one, but I won't read it to my children. So yeah, I'm gonna export this so that I can send it over to Overdrive. And if any of you find any RB Digital titles, feel free to do this, export them and send them over to me as well. And I'll just investigate. And then the net library titles, it looks like, and from what I knew from the discussion at the time, was that EBSCO has made those links functional. So you'll want them to be proxy enabled, and then you may want to work with EBSCO to correct the static URL. Because like if we look at this URL, we could find the permalink, yeah, and if you took out the proxy, is that it? Anyway, yeah, anyway, so one of the things that Amanda has done, which may actually be because of this collection now that I'm thinking of it, see this database code in the middle here, the DB, anyway, in the middle of this EBSCO link, the DB code is NLEBK. That is the database link for their entire ebook collection, and not just the academic collection. So it's kind of like this big ghost upper one. And Amanda actually has that collection active, and I don't believe it has portfolios. And she has also changed the parser parameters for their regular ebook collection to go to this database instead of the academic one. And I'm wondering if that isn't because she was finding these additional titles that were not proxying correctly. So it's always interesting to check your database codes This could be a whole different e-resource management topic about like direct linking to databases through libguides, or if you're adding them in Alma, because finding database codes is just fun. And you just do it by like, I just did it the other day for EBSCO because I want to know what was going on. And I can spell. So yeah, EBSCO calls them database short names. But if you want to create a direct link to a database that is part of a collection that you have, because you want some kind of niche direct link to provide in the catalog or on your website or to a faculty member, you can construct those database links really easily by getting all these individual codes, and not all of them make sense. And then what's really interesting is the audiobook and the ebook ones are way longer. Like the regular ones are, CINAHL is CUL, CINAHL Ultimate. And then you go to ebook and it's like 900 XWW. So that's, yeah, creating direct links can be quite useful. That's how I would direct like education students to Gale resources that I didn't generally want findable in Discovery. But I did want to be able to say on our education libguide, like, hey, this is this database that your students will have access to in the Spokane public school system. So, and it's very easy to get this stuff. So anyway, yeah, so
That spreadsheet that you started, like we started the hour with, some of that work, I learned a little bit about Project Gutenberg. Would I be able to see that just to start getting my brain around some of what's listed there?
oh sure, yeah. So I can like share this. Here's like the campus, the collection, the public name, so you can see like, are people changing it, whether or not their portfolio. I didn't do a great complex export, but then I do have it by school as well. And I'll send this to you so you can look at yours. But
Okay.
so like you can see how many things you don't have active for search in CDI.
Uh-huh.
And like how many EBSCO things there are.
Good times ahead for me, looks like.
I'm like, that tells me like, maybe a lot of micro collections were,
Oh.
so this is the interface name. I can hide that. But you've got, so, check which subscription you actually have.
Yeah.
2 of the computer source.
Yeah, I'm seeing 2 academic search complete also.
Yeah, so like there's probably a fair amount of just EBSCO cleanup you could do. And like this probably shouldn't be active.
Yeah, what the heck is that?
That might, I wonder if that's kind of left over from when Primo Central Index changed over to CDI,
Oh.
because there were things that we had to turn on in the Primo Central Index
to get
to
the
be able to
good
find articles.
Mhm.
And then when they shut down Primo Central Index and moved everything to CDI,
You
things
didn't need
we had
it.
turned on in Primo Central Index were then turned on in our community zone electronic collections.
Yeah. And that is actually the topic that I was trying to cover today, because these things are active for search, but don't have portfolios, and like, who knows how they're configured.
Mhm.
However, the Hathy Digital Trust US is active at 20 institutions. So post-migration from PCI to CDI, some people did keep that active.
But did they mean to?
Yeah.
Well, I wonder, because like the other Hathys are like, let's alphabetize. Good golly, forgot how many there were in this list. So yeah, you can see that the
Yes,
worldwide and the outside US got
Yeah.
deactivated at most
I'm-
places.
And I'm wondering if the HathiTrust full view, like, are those for just the member libraries of the HathiTrust? Like, are those collections that we shouldn't have activated for CDI search because none of us
don't
are
have
are
access.
part of Hathi, and so we're not allowed to look at the full text of the ebooks.
So I
So
thought there was a subscription version and the free version.
well, let's look at search rights versus full text rights in the community zone.
Oh, do it as one word.
Okay, here we go. So if we look at US, we've got search rights free, full text rights in CDI is open access.
Oh, good to know.
So that one, and then view worldwide, also open access. So yeah, I don't know. And those are the only three that have that as the interface.
Okay, so
But check
maybe
this out. They are databases. They don't have
Oh.
portfolios. That's why it says full text rights open access, because I'm betting it just takes you to their website.
Well, I've seen a collection with the database type that bring back article level records in Primo. So
They do. It's just a different linking mechanism. It's how they construct the link to the content, as opposed to having portfolios. At least that's what I was led to believe.
right, but what I meant was that not having portfolios in Alma doesn't mean that we get full text back in Primo.
So you cannot have portfolios and still have full text articles.
In
Yes.
Primo.
And
Yeah.
But how does it affect the records then? Like,
It all comes down to the scope that you're using for the search. So if you're using what most of us have called the catalog scope, then you're looking at bibliographic records that come from Alma. If you're using the articles scope or the everything scope, you're looking at metadata records that come from ALMA and or the CDI. Like the everything scope is metadata records from ALMA and metadata records from the CDI. The article scope is metadata records from the CDI. And sometimes those metadata records are for articles or book chapters, but sometimes those metadata records are for, they're for books where Ex Libris gets the metadata in some weird format that they can't put into ALMA. So they put it in CDI. Or there are metadata records at the title level for streaming videos or streaming audios, or just weird multimedia stuff. Oh, sorry, Dandy. So in those cases, it's like Naoko says, if you're doing an article scoped search, you'll find out that a title exists, but it's just that the record is coming from the CDI instead of having a bib record in ALMA, if that makes sense.
Mm. So, yeah, okay. I want to just try something. Because this is something
So
from,
it's like we talked about saying yes or no to the question whether you have some titles or all titles. So it's a similar thing. So database type, if you activate that, it signals to CDI, I have everything from this collection, and CDI sends back whatever's in whatever record CDI records they have belong to the collection will be sent back to the Primo.
Yes.
now I'm curious. Okay, so I just found a title from this collection in your Primo, and it is configured as a database, not proxy. Great. And it is active for search. Okay, and then under aha, so there's no service, edit service on databases.
Right,
Because
unless you're Seattle or Spokane.
because multiple
Yeah, their
libraries.
databases have no portfolios, so they have no need to have a service.
Okay. Okay, well, it is a quarter after. And I thank you all for contributing your knowledge as we kind of peeked around in e-resources. And it's given me a project with the RB Digital titles and maybe given you an idea of a project of how you can clean up or change configuration. And yeah, our next e-resources themed open call will be October 9th at 1 p.m. So yeah, we'll cycle through some other topics before then that inevitably may overlap, but I think so far I like this kind of like, let's just talk about a topic rotation.
Good
So-
idea, Carly.
Thank you.
This is
Okay.
great. Thank you.
All right, well, you guys have a good week and I'll see you
Alright.
later.
Bye.
Bye.